welcome everybody to Inside Boxing Daily on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your co-host for Inside Boxing Daily, Mike Goodpaster. And right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm doing very damn well. Let's get this ball rolling.
All right, and we're going to roll the ball with maybe one of the greatest boxing writers that mankind has ever seen.
Oh, gosh.
He wrote with Dennis Taylor, Intimate Warfare, about Gotti Ward, pictures by Ed Mulholland. Always got to bring that up because Ed's pictures is better than John's writing, and John's writing is really good. Help us welcome to the show, John Raspanti. How you doing, John?
Doing great, Mike. Thanks. I guess you got the check, so I appreciate all the nice comments there. Thank you.
All right, and we're going to start off talking about the World Boxing Super Series, and the reason we had John on tonight is because Regis Prograis, he just interviewed, and that will be on Ringside Boxing Show around 8 o'clock Eastern Time, Sunday nights, so make sure you check that out at thegruelingtruth.net. But there's been a lot of rumors floating around about the World Boxing Super Series and whether it was still solvent or not. Did you happen to ask Regis about that?
We sure did, and we asked about the money, because there's been concerns about money and whether boxers have been getting paid, and the Rougarou addressed that, said there was no problem. He doesn't really know what's going on, Mike. He hasn't got a date for his next fight with Relic, and us boxing guys, we want to see that fight, and he wants that fight, but he doesn't know anything. So he's basically just in the dark and waiting to hear and staying in shape. But he's a very patient person, and he's not getting too frustrated. But I don't know. It's a great tournament. He's so determined. He wants to fight Josh Taylor really bad, but it's pretty much up in the air right now.
Yeah, and a man who's not patient is Jeremiah Preisser, who loves the World Boxing Super Series. Jeremiah, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously he's not the first guy. I mean, even at 140 pounds, Ivan Baranchyk was thinking about pulling out as well. But this was due to financial issues, and there were a whole bunch of rumors floating about. But then I think it was a day or two afterwards, everything seemed to be fine, and he was back in, and everything, there was a green light for all the fights to go. But, it seems just from what I've heard is, maybe there's a lack of communication there, and, they're not setting this thing up in a time frame. But I was under the assumption, or, I was under the impression that they had squared all this away, the German promoter Sauerland and, the investors. I thought this was all squared away. I thought the venues were set and the finances have been secured and whatnot. But I am hoping that this all goes smoothly. I mean, to me, it would suck to see it flounder. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the super / junior divisions. I've made that quite clear. However, I do think it's a good format for boxing. I mean, there's a lot to be gained from this. I mean, we see what it's done for Usyk. We see what it would do for the 140-pounder. Granted the tournament goes through. I mean, because Prograis versus Taylor, granted they win, that would be the number one and number two guys, and you'd have a real champion in that division. So I'm hoping it all gets squared away because I'm like Prograis. I'd love to see the Taylor fight. Relic is a good opponent for Prograis, but he's not quite on that level. He doesn't quite have that size. I think Prograis southpaw style would be a bit too much for him. But I want to see it. I want to see it. Taylor is a burgeoning star. If he happens to win the tournament, he'll be huge over in the UK. Big Scottish guy. I know a lot of those Scots have high hopes for him, but. Yeah, I just want to see it, man. I think it's a good format for boxing, and I wish a lot of American promoters would play along.
Well, should we have more hope than what it sounds like we do right now, John, since they just announced yesterday in Latvia, June the 15th, that Briedis is going to fight Glowacki?
Yeah, and Jeremiah is right as usual. It looks like maybe things are okay, and I'm surprised. You would think that if anyone would know that, it would be Regis, but he didn't really seem to know what was going on. So maybe there is just a real lack of communication, and I don't want to see this fade away either because I love these boxing tournaments. I think they're great for the sport. I think they're great for fans. You get the best. Most of the time you end up with the best meeting the best, and that's what always has made boxing so good for anybody who likes boxing or loves boxing like us is you want to see the best fight the best. And nowadays we don't get that as nearly as much as we want. And with these tournaments, it will likely happen. And if you get Prograis and Taylor, and because Prograis said that, he goes, I consider him the number 2 guy. Of course, you know who he considers number 1, and he wants to fight him, and he wants to unify. So I hope that whatever's going on is just some kind of some lack of communication, some misunderstanding, whatever term you want to use, and they fight. But it's just been handled very strangely, and a lot of confusion going on. But I'm going to try to stay optimistic about it, Mike.
All right. If you want to talk about the best fighting the best, there's been rumors running wild, Jeremiah, that Keith Thurman's going to fight Adrian Broner, who we all know got screwed in the decision against Pacquiao, because anytime you win 2 rounds, you should claim you won the fight. Is there any? Do you give any credence to this rumor?
Well, I mean, with the PBC, it's hard to tell, but I don't want to get ahead of myself here. I mean, it is just a rumor so far, and it would be unfortunate to see Broner, a loser, take on Thurman, a winner, when I mean, it would make much more sense financially and from a fan's perspective to just have Thurman fight Pacquiao. And again, like we talked about, what was it, not last show, but the show before that, how it would make much more sense if Thurman fought Pacquiao and then Porter and Spence got it on later this year, and then maybe early next year you'd have each winner fight each other, and potentially you could have a new champion from that. I mean, Thurman is now, because he's active, he's back into the top 5. And it'll depend on, if Porter gets knocked off, he'll get knocked down a rung, and then we'll have to see how kind of Crawford plays it, because if he's fighting Amir Khan, that's, I just could potentially see Thurman overtaking Crawford before the end of the year. But again, that's a lot of conjecture, and I'm just kind of reading into things, but that's what I would like to see. But Broner getting another payday against Keith Thurman, no thank you. I mean, Thurman, even at this stage, is just too good for him. Broner is, in a lot of ways, he kind of reminds me of Zab Judah. I mean, he's tougher than Judah, at least in terms of chin, but it's like, because of his name and maybe his associations, well, we all know him and Al are tight. He's just going to keep getting payday after payday, and I know, Mike, you're on board with this, but Broner's going to end up getting hurt, and I'm not even necessarily saying inside the ring. I mean, he just seems like a guy who's going to take too much damage inside the ring and potentially do something fatal outside the ring. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. What was it, last year or the year before, where he's getting shot at in a vehicle? I mean, not long after the Pacquiao bout, I think he had some charge or something that he had to deal with in Florida. I mean, the guy is just – he's just a case waiting to happen. You hope it doesn't turn into death, but just the rate he's going, I don't want to see any of that.
All right, John, are you excited to see this fight?
Oh, God, yes, I'm thrilled. I can't wait.
You dropped $75 for that, won't you?
Oh, my God, yes. No, I just, my eyebrows went up and I just groaned. I have to hope this is a rumor. But as Jeremiah said, with the PBC, you don't know. Al Heyman just, he wants to keep Broner in the money, I guess, and it would almost be better for Broner if he lost all his money. Maybe at some point he might wake up. I doubt it.
I'm betting he's already lost all his money, and that's why he continues to fight by now.
Probably, yeah, probably. And you would think age is just a number. Some people grow up as they get older when they have a lot of kids, but with him, he's just he's just a dumbass, And I'm with Jeremiah. I don't really want to see anything really happen to the guy, even though I will admit that when Marcus Maidana beat the crap out of him, I enjoyed it because I was tired of his arrogance. But you just get the feeling that his time on Earth is short. Because something just seems like it's going to happen. He just got that whole attitude, and then he does such dumb things. You just wonder if it's planned. How can you stand there and say I won that fight with a straight face? Now, is he that delusional? Has he lost it that much? I can't believe he's that.
Well, I do think in his defense that I think his mother is Adelaide Byrd.
Well,
who's his dad?
It's that big fat guy that brushes his hair, isn't it, John?
Yeah, I know. That's ridiculous. I'll tell you, I talked to Adrian Broner on the phone about 7 or 8 years ago, and he was okay.
Well, I met him and talked to him
outspoken.
2 years ago before the Adrian Granados fight. He seemed like a nice guy, so maybe this is all a show, but the police would tend to think otherwise, I think.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Yeah, well,
he keeps getting in all this trouble, right? I mean, he keeps getting into more and more trouble, and it seems like we said, that his number's going to come up one of these times, and it's not going to be good. So I just hope it doesn't happen, because boxing's just going to get mocked again, and people are going to go, oh my gosh. So let's just hope that fight doesn't happen.
Well, if they don't mock him for that fight, they'll mock him for something else, because boxing always does something to make itself look stupid.
Yep.
Like today, when the WBA gave Vasil Lomachenko an exception to fight Richard Comey. I know you were excited about seeing fight Anthony Corolla, John, but it looks like it may not happen now. At least not yet.
Oh yeah, I was thrilled to watch him put a beating on old Anthony. That would have been a one-sided beat down as we had seen in a while. The fight with Richard. Now that I was at when I watched Comey, he was pretty impressive. So I
think Comey's one of the few guys that has a chance against Lomachenko.
Exactly. So when I saw that fight, I thought, wow, this guy is long and he can punch a little bit and he's got good power and you know, we're starting to wonder. There's a lot of whispering about Lomachenko. What happened in his last fight? He didn't look all that good. So maybe it was his shoulder. Maybe he's a little wary with that. So there'd be those intangibles going in. And yeah, what happens there? Yeah, but you're right. You're joking. I know, but nobody wanted to see him fight Corolla. So yeah, thank gosh that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean he'd just be as good fighting a Jewish hammer, Adam Carolla. Did you ever see the movie The Jewish Hammer with Adam Carolla, John?
No, I did not. Somehow I missed that one.
Hey, I got one to ask you because I brought this up last night. Did you see The Brawler yet about Chuck Webner?
Chuck? You mean the movie called Chuck?
No, The Brawler. There was 2 movies made about Chuck Webner, and The Brawler is now out on Amazon. You can rent it for $6.99, but don't.
No, I haven't seen that one. I didn't even hear of it. See, so.
Oh yeah. See, I remember I interviewed Chuck like a year and a half ago, and he said that there was 2 movies being made about him. This second movie though is the guy is like a model that plays him, and it's really hard to sell Chuck Wepner with long hair and a goatee and a 6-pack, unless it's Budweiser.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Chuck was good though. You guys saw Chuck, right?
Yeah, I love Chuck. The Brawler I could have done without. It was probably almost as bad as Hands of Stone.
Oh, well, let's not go there.
Which our friend Christopher Shelton ranked as the 8th greatest boxing movie ever because there was boobies in it. Yeah. But
yeah, he mentioned that about 4 times, Jeremiah.
Yeah, he mentioned the boobies 4 or 5 times. And I will give him this. They were some fine boobies. But that's not good enough to rank it as a good movie.
Well, okay, Mike, but were they number 8? So of all the boobs you've seen in boxing movies, is it top 5?
I think it might have been number 1. What do you think, John?
Well, they weren't bad. I'll admit that.
Oh, they were good. They were good.
Yeah,
movies.
They were good. They might have been number 1. Yeah, because we obviously don't see many boobs in.
And
boxing
I will
movies.
admit this. I watched the entire movie just on the off chance that those boobs would come back on the screen.
Well, gotta be.
Maybe they knew like a quarter of a way through the movie, this sucks. So let's throw a nice pair of boobs there, and people will watch to the end.
Maybe.
Well, they got you, Mike.
They got me. They got me good. And they got Christopher Shelton to rank him in the top 10 of all time. All right. The numbers are in from ESPN. Averaged 880,000 with a peak of 1 million for last Saturday night's show. What do you think about the job ESPN and DAZN have done so far, John?
It seems like ESPN has a little bit of a heads up on them. I'm not a big fan of I will say that some of the commentating on ESPN, I don't like the way they can. Yeah, and they yell, and I don't like yeller announcers. I don't like that. It doesn't fit boxing for me. It's old school again. I don't think you need to go, he's down. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, you need Don Dunphy, not Mario Ronaldo.
There you go.
Yeah, well,
you need smooth talking there.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it irritates me. So I end up turning the sound down most of the time. The same thing actually with the English announcers too. They're such homers that when you're watching
Oh my God.
them, I mean, yeah,
Jesus.
they're terrible. I mean, it's like their fighter is losing and their voice gets real depressed, and they're like, "Well, what's your card say?" And he's behind on points. And
It's
like,
kind of like
still gotta draw.
John, do you remember
Still gotta
Kirk
draw.
Gowdy? Kirk Gowdy in the 1975 World Series. Game 6, Fisk hits his home run. He's screaming and hollering. Game 7, there's a fly ball to center field, and the Cincinnati Reds are the World Series champions.
Yes, Kirk Gowdy. And it's sad that we don't have that anymore, but it's the way of the world. But I think ESPN is doing, especially the boxing world, I think ESPN's doing a pretty good job. Their cards have been pretty good. I mean, not for the casual boxing fan, but for us who watch those entire cards, they're good. Some of their matchups are pretty good. The Zone, I think they're a little behind from what I've seen. Actually didn't even know. This is sad. I didn't even know that the last fight on the Zone was on the Zone. So I found other way to watch it, and then I went, oh, I paid for this. I might as well watch it. So they're waiting until they get Canelo and Jacobs on. That's going to be their big, if they're going to have a breakthrough. But I think it's just taken them a little bit longer to get going. But I love all this. I love this. I love all the boxing.
Yeah, we can see everything now, John.
Exactly, and I don't really want to criticize it because the people, it's cracking me up. Some of the people I see, oh my God, I'm not going to get ESPN. It's like it's $4.99.
I know.
You're going to buy,
I know.
Buy pay-per-view
I wish John Einreinhofer
$85.
was on here right now.
Oh my gosh! I thought, or $9.99.
But I know he's listening, John, and $5 is not that much.
My gosh, talk about a tight lawyer, right? I mean, come on. Geez, $9.99 for the Zone. Okay, so, but it's the way it used to be with the pay-per-view and HBO. I mean, I don't have HBO anymore.
Yeah, but we were paying $15 a month for HBO and not even getting a fight most months at the last.
That's
couple
what
of
I
years.
mean. Exactly. And HBO threw in the towel the last few months. God, they just gave up. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, they even had women fight.
Yeah, so
as their last one.
Yeah,
exactly. They kind of went out with a whimper there, didn't they? But it's just so. Like I said, it's hard for me to be real critical because I like this. And the people that are my age that are complaining about it, come on, you got to get a little bit up on this. It's not that difficult. Just follow the instructions. They walk you right through it. And if you love boxing, you're going to get some pretty good shows. You're going to get some stinkers, but again, for what you're paying, it's good as far as I'm concerned. Both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeremiah.
No, I was just going to throw a few comments in there real quick. I'm just going to go back to Lomachenko, Kroll, and Anthony Crolla, and there are two people who actually want to see that fight, and it's Anthony Crolla and Eddie Hearn, who's been in bed with the WBA for years now. I mean, that's why Jorge Linares fought what was it, 3 or 4 Eddie Hearn guys in a row when he was defending his WBA belt. But thank you, WBA, for being so gracious and sparing us of that match for now. Okay, so it's just a delay. In regards to ESPN and DAZN, so not all of the subscription numbers for ESPN Plus are boxing. That is total, the number that they've released. But apparently they are attributing a good number of those subscriptions to boxing. So that is a good thing. And how accessible it is also a good thing. I mean, like you said, a little bit of the older generation, they're like, I don't want to watch it on my phone. No, just go on. Just plug in a Fire Stick or a Chromecast or, get a smart TV. I mean, it's really not that hard. My thing is I'm happy to see all the boxing. I mean, it's nice, but I just see the potential there for faltering again. And I just fear, with Top Rank and the WBO hanging out on ESPN Plus. I mean, look at that. Gilberto Ramirez, WBO title. Oscar Valdez, WBO title. Lomachenko, Crawford, WBO title. On and on and on. I mean, just like the WBA and Eddie Hearn is in bed, the WBO and Top Rank is in bed. And what I fear is that I like what DAZN is doing with the middleweight division. I mean, Canelo Alvarez fights Golovkin. He takes a he has a quick turnaround and beats up Rocky Fielding. No big deal in my opinion. But then he fights Danny Jacobs, who is the most worthy outside of Gennady Golovkin. So. And we may get a third Golovkin match later in the year. So we know that DAZN is paying big money. Well, I hear there are a lot of stipulations in the contracts, but I'd probably, ask somebody who's more familiar with that stuff than me, to get their expertise. That's just what I've heard. So, if we get Danny Jacobs and Gennady Golovkin in 1 year with Canelo Alvarez, I mean, that's reason enough to sign up for DAZN. I mean, Anthony Joshua, he's gonna get a couple big fights as well. I think they're doing a pretty damn good job.
Yeah, and if you get pissed off and don't sign up to pay the $20 a month, by next year, we'll have DAZN pay-per-view.
Yeah, exactly. They got to cover those costs somehow.
All right, so let's take a step back in time. And the boxing world today lost Rocky Lockridge, who was one of my favorite fighters growing up, Jeremiah. And I think he's one of the most underrated fighters. And it really made me sick to see people on Facebook, social media, wanting Chris John in the Hall of Fame, but they didn't want Rocky Lockridge. And this is basically people that don't know what the hell they're doing. But on top of that, this will go to show you what the scoring in boxing can do. Because he beat Pedroza the first fight. And I think he beat Julio Cesar Chavez. If he gets those 2 wins, he would be considered an all-time great and already be in the Boxing Hall of Fame.
Yeah, man. I mean, you already know we've talked about this over and over again because I've been on Lockridge for quite a while now. Because every time the voting rolls around, Lockridge is on the ballot, and then I got to hear Rick Glazer. I like Rick Glazer. Okay, he says some business-wise, he's intuitive, and he says some things that I appreciate, and he gets conversation going. But he voted for Chris John. And I'm paraphrasing now, but he said he was as sure as Chris John was a Hall of Famer as he was when he met his wife that he was going to marry her, something like that. Dude, Chris John was not the best 126-pounder on the ballot. Listen, Rocky Lockridge. He wasn't
the best 126-pounder at his time.
Yeah. Exactly. And here's the thing. It's like the point you alluded to a little bit earlier, okay? And I mentioned this on Frank Laziero's, tribute to Rocky Lockridge. There is a problem with boxing, and it's these face value assessments, okay? Anybody can go on BoxRec and say, hey, well, he lost these decisions. Let's just use Rocky Lockridge for context, okay? So Rocky Lockridge, his first loss, he really didn't come up that tough. I mean, you look at his record, he wasn't beaten. I don't even know if he beat a legitimate contender before he fought Pedroza.
Well, you know why that is? You probably don't, because you're not as old as me and a certain John that's on this show. But, John, you remember tomorrow's champions on NBC Sports World with Marv Albert and Freddie Pacheco.
Yes.
I mean, we saw Rocky Lockridge fight every couple months.
Yeah. Well, and so... Yeah, so here it is. So he didn't fight a lot. I don't know if he fought a legitimate contender before he got Pedroza. He fights Pedroza. Anybody who goes on BoxRec who's not familiar with his career doesn't sit down and watch the tape. They're like, okay, well, he failed against Pedroza. It was close, but he failed. Okay, and then he gets stopped by Laporte. That was a bit of a shocker. Loses to Pedroza again in a close one. Loses to Gomez in a close one again. These are all just box
Gomez too, by the way.
Absolutely, he did.
Yeah, that fight wasn't even that close.
No, it wasn't. In fact, I watched that fight a few months back, and Gomez looks like he's on his way out. I think in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. I can't quite remember what it is, but yeah, he looks like he's huffing and puffing. Lockridge is clearly the bigger guy. But people need to watch the tape to get an honest assessment, for themselves so they can grade these folks accordingly. Okay, so he beat Pedroza in the first fight. I wrote a lengthy article on Pedroza, watched his career from scratch, so I had no, I had nothing in the game, right? It wasn't one of those guys that I wanted to watch. I just watched him, come to appreciate him. I thought he clearly lost Petroza fight. Even watched the 12th round, and the commentators were like, "This is clearly a Lockridge win." The decision goes against him, yada yada. But we have to think about this stuff too. It not only is he getting bogus decisions. Okay, he beat Gomez clearly. He beat Petroza first time clearly. Second fight was damn close. But you think about the politics of it as well. So the WBA, where are they stationed? What is it, Puerto Rico or Panama?
Panama.
It's okay. So it's Panama. So you're fighting a Panamanian for a Panamanian trinket. Okay. Good luck. Okay, you're fighting Wilfredo Gomez in Puerto Rico, and you're fighting an organization that is was that the. Damn it, I can't remember now. But then you fight Julio Cesar Chavez for a WBC belt in the WBC. Its home is in Mexico, right? So this guy is fighting with the stacked, the deck stacked against him consistently. In the Chavez fight, I think that one could truly go either way. Lockridge was the aggressor. I thought Chavez boxed nicely. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But if you just flip those decisions, he beats Gomez like he should have. He beats Pedrosa in the first fight like he should have. The dude is clearly a Hall of Famer to most of us. But no, instead, again, you get this face value analysis. They're just doing box rec stuff. They're not watching the tape. And this is what you get. You get Chris John being voted in more than Rocky Lockridge, and it's bullshit.
Yeah, and if you look at Lockridge, John, he was a guy that, didn't fight at home too much after the Pedrosa fight. He was a guy that goes to, was it France to fight Chavez? He goes to Puerto Rico to fight Gomez. He even fought, I remember watching this fight, Kamel Bou Ali, which was on NBC Sports World. And the reason I remember that was Vinny Pazienza was on the undercard, and they actually showed part of his fight when he got beat by Barbie. So I just wanted to bring it up because I remember it, and I don't think anybody outside of, Vinny Pazienza remembers it. But also, this is a guy that beat Cornelius Boza Edwards. He knocked out Roger Mayweather in the first round, which was one of the happiest days of my life.
He talks so much shit beforehand.
Yeah, and he comes in the dark sunglasses, and then he gets these lights put out by Lockridge. But then he fights Barry Michael. I'm sure he didn't have to go to Blazers nightclub in Windsor to fight him, but he did. He beats Johnny De La Rosa, who was a good fighter, Harold Knight. Then he goes to Sacramento. He's the super featherweight champion of the world, and he goes to Sacramento, Tony Lopez's backyard. He loses 2 close decisions. I think the 1988 one was the fight of the year, John. And when you look at his career, I don't see how he's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, his whole life in a lot of ways, ups and downs and tragic. And this is another example of the tragedy that a guy can not get the respect that he deserves. I mean, he was a road warrior. He would fight anybody. Yeah, me too, Mike. When he knocked out Roger Mayweather, that was about the greatest thing. I jumped off the couch. I remember I was a youngin' back then. You were quite a bit younger, I will say, but I was so happy when he won that fight. That was so cool. It was so sudden when he knocked him out. It was great. I'm with you guys. I remember watching the Gomez fight. I thought he won it. Chavez fight, I wasn't surprised. See, that's the thing when you follow boxing, you kind of know where it's going to go whenever. Even back then, like Jeremiah was setting up, who's got the connections. So it was a tough haul. So everything that Rocky got, he earned it. It wasn't given to him. So for that alone, and for who he beat, yeah, he deserves to be there. And the fact that he's so forgotten, and people seem to dwell on what happened to him after, when he went to jail and he had that terrible stroke, and then they show the moment when he has the meltdown, and people find that also funny. It was just tragic what happened to him, and he wasn't old when he died. He was only 60, and his last few years were terrible. But the way we can reward him is to celebrate his boxing career and give him the respect he deserves. Maybe people will look at him again now, but I doubt it. I totally agree with Jeremiah. People look at the surface. It's easy. You just go look at a record, you go, oh, he lost there, he wasn't good enough. And that's bullshit. And that's just very disappointing when it comes to a career. in any kind of sport, you got to show a little bit of interest and depth when you're trying to figure out, especially when you're voting for the Hall of Fame. You got to know what you're voting for, and if you don't study it and research it, then as far as I'm concerned, your vote is wasted.
Well, yeah, and how often do we hear Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead. You already started.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was going to say, how often do we hear, these people with boxing opinions, and they repeat things almost, and it becomes a mantra, and you're like, okay, well, go watch the damn fight yourself, and stop going off what you're hearing from other people who didn't really watch the tape. I mean, it's over and over again. And not only that, not only was Lockridge, not only did he deserve those 2 wins, arguably a third against Chavez, but he was the man at 130 pounds when he blitzed Roger Mayweather. So it wasn't like Chris John, where you look at his record, you're like, oh, well, he had an alphabet trinket, and he had a controversial decision against Marquez, and he had 18 trinket defenses. And again, that's what you're using. You're like, oh, well, he beat Marquez, and he had 18 alphabet trinket defenses, and that's better than Rocky Gomez, who only held on to a title a short period of time. It's baloney, because again, you break this down. Go look at Chris John's record. Go tell me, for people who are listening, how many guys he beat were in the top 10 at the time he fought them.
Yeah,
okay, so I can tell you that
Indonesia until the end.
Yeah.
I think Juarez.
Right. Well, and I think one of the top 10 guys he beat was Rocky Juarez in the rematch. So I think because Juarez fought him so close in that fight, Juarez jumped into the rankings. Right. So, but that's what I'm saying is, Juarez was not ranked. He fights Chris John close, and then he gets put in the rankings, right? So all this stuff is misleading, but we know Wilfredo Gomez is one of the greatest, arguably the greatest Puerto Rican fighter ever. We know that Julio Cesar Chavez is arguably the greatest Mexican fighter ever. Eusebio Pedroza, number 2 greatest Panamanian fighter ever? Or maybe Panama Al Brown is probably number 2. Again, I don't want to get too deep into that stuff, but we're talking about bona fide legends here. And he arguably has wins, at least he should have wins over 2, arguably 3. I mean, come on. The guy deserves his just due.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. You got anything else on it, John?
No, I just repeat what I said. I agree. It just angers me that you look at a guy like Chris John, right? And when Mike, a few weeks ago, you mentioned him, and I went, huh? Oh, yeah, I remember him. He's got the gaudy record, right? He was 48-1 or something like that. I remember, lost his last fight, and that's just going off the top of my head. But that's the thing. That's an example. A casual boxing fan sees that and goes, "Oh, well, he must have been really good." Disappointed in Rick Glazer. I like Rick too, Jeremiah, and I'm that offhanded comment that he made. That makes me think. Well, Rick knows boxing, a lot about boxing, but he blew it on that one, and this is the kind of stuff that we have to fix, somehow. I don't know how, but when a guy deserves to be in a Hall of Fame, he deserves it. He shouldn't be left out because of people's lack of depth, and it just really makes me mad.
Yeah. All right. On this day, tonight we're going to talk a little Oliver McCall and Lennox Lewis.
Yeah.
The two had fought 2.5 years before that. Lewis called McCall's victory lucky and offered $10 million for a rematch. McCall refused the offer, claiming that Lewis had disrespected him with his post-fight comments, and instead decided to defend the title against 45-year-old ex-heavyweight champion Larry Holmes, who actually gave him some trouble. Lewis, on the other hand, went on. I think he beat Justin Fortune and somebody else that was nondescript. And then he beats Tommy Morrison, Ray Mercer, forces the rematch. Oliver McCall, is getting beat by Frank Bruno. And then basically, I mean, come on, you can't lose to Frank Bruno. Did he lose to Bruno? I think he did, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, he loses to Frank Bruno. Who does that? But, sorry to all the British people out there that love him, but it's Frank Bruno. And then Bruno, of course, gets afraid of Mike Tyson, pees his pants, and gets knocked out in the 3rd round. But this fight, the thing that's the saddest thing about this fight is you could kind of see this coming. Before the fight, if I remember right, McCall was arrested on charges of like vandalism and disorderly conduct. He resisted arrest. They sent him back to rehab in hopes that he would kick his drug addiction. But Frank Maloney and Dino Duva decided that it was all right for him to go ahead and defend his title against McCall, or against Lewis. And the thing that stands out to me about this fight, John, was, if I remember right, I think it was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon on HBO. I'm only excited to watch a heavyweight title fight. McCall comes out and in the first 3 rounds throws 26 punches. Now, if that was today and he was fighting Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, that would be a lot of punches. But back then it wasn't, John.
Yeah, I was watching too. I was watching, and I remember vividly because the commentators were talking about him having a nervous breakdown or a meltdown in his face. He had this look on his face, and it was probably one of the most bizarre. I can't say probably the most. One of the most. I'll just say one of the most, not the most bizarre heavyweight fights that I had seen in a while. Lewis was right. He got caught by a right hand by McCall. He was a better fighter, obviously, than Oliver McCall. But it was just a weird, surreal, bizarre fight, and I believe they stopped it. I can't remember what round they did, but around round 8 or something. Was the 5th round?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he started freaking out at the end of round 3, and they basically kept forcing him out. And if I remember right, he was even in tears during the 5th round when they stopped the fight. And Mills Lane was what I remember the most, because Mills Lane couldn't figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah, it was pathetic, is what it was. And the thing about Oliver McCall is that I think I'm going by memory here. I think I read that he's going to be fighting here soon. He's like 52 or 53, right? And he's going to be fighting soon. I think I heard that or read that somewhere, and he's still boxing, and so I guess he recovered from whatever was going on that night. But
I don't know that he did, because actually I was supposed to interview him like a year ago, and I talked to him on the phone, and I still think there's some difficulties with Oliver.
Yeah. Well,
hey, put it like this. Wait a second. He has been suspended by the Texas Combative Sports Program until February 28th, 2019. I don't know why, and I probably don't want to know why. He's already fought this year.
The hell?
Well, no, so he's set to fight March 23rd. He fought last year.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah, March 23rd.
He won a unanimous decision over Larry Knight, who was 3-16. Before that, though, let's see. Wait, I've heard of this guy, Krzysztof Zimanok.
Yeah.
He lost a unanimous decision to him in 2013. Francisco Pianeta, he lost a unanimous decision in 2012 too.
So nobody's knocked him out still?
Hold on. You got to get this. His last win over somebody that was pretty good was Frezekindo, who he beat in 2010. So they can fight for like the AARP needs to come out with a title belt and let those two fight for the heavyweight championship.
Yeah, no shit, right? So McCall still hasn't been stopped. So
no.
McCall still hasn't been knocked out.
I guess not. Hold on. He was TKO'd. So. Does that count?
Well, I mean, by who? I mean.
Well, he was TKO'd by Lennox Lewis, but he was also he's been TKO'd a lot. Well, not a lot, a couple times. Oh. But the thing that I remember about him, Jeremiah, and you've probably seen this before on YouTube, was his sparring sessions with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Oliver McCall was not a scared dude.
No, the guy had some talent, and Lewis and other people can talk about a lucky punch all they want, but if you listen to the commentary in the second fight, I can't remember who's commentating. It sounds like a former fighter, and I can't get my name around it right now. Damn it, I don't know, but he was basically talking like, hey, Oliver McCall in the corner before he even went out in the round that he stopped Lewis in, he was like, hey, I'm going to get him with a short right hand. I mean, the dude basically like called his shot, I mean, he, it wasn't like some Babe Ruth mythicals type stuff, but he was like, hey, this is how I'm going to get him. No, the guy was a talented guy. I mean, and I think he was perfect for Mike Tyson, a guy who would get right in there, wouldn't be scared and fight. You know, no, those.
And this is the thing. Mike Tyson, never fought Oliver McCall.
No,
I
no, that
think
would have been
this.
that.
I
Well,
think Oliver McCall is one of those guys, like the guys in the '80s we talk about, John. Oliver McCall is a guy that he could have been a special fighter. I
Yeah.
think he was really talented. He was tough. He could throw a punch. He could take a punch. He had everything from the shoulders down.
Yeah, and he could punch, right? And I think that knockout loss, or I won't call it a knockout stoppage, was the only time, Mike, that he ever was stopped in his career, I think. And that's obviously he wasn't stopped because he was out on his feet or anything. He was just out of it a different way. But yeah, he's one of those guys that in all sports you wonder, how good they could have been if they had their head screwed on correctly or something. But yeah, he was a pretty good fighter. He fought a lot of guys, and he can at least say he was a heavyweight champion, so he's got that. And but he's the fact that he's still fighting is just mind-boggling to me. He's 53 years old. I think I just looked it up. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
fighting
and you're
Ronald
right.
Baca, March 23rd.
Ronald Baca.
Yeah, and they're fighting at the Richard M. Borchard Regional Fairgrounds in Robstown. I don't know where the hell that is, but
where is that? Yeah,
I don't know. It doesn't give a state. I'm thinking that the local Chevy dealer is probably sponsoring it though, or the local strip club. All right, John, you wrote Intimate Warfare about Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward. You want to tell everybody where they can get it?
Yeah, go on Amazon and get it. We're sad because it hasn't been selling now. Maybe all our friends bought it and all our family members and everything, and they're going to get some new people to buy it. But yeah, it would make my day if somebody bought it this week because it's great. I'm really proud of it. I'll admit that. It was fun to write, and the fact that the boxing fans love it so much really makes us happy, and I'm still getting occasional comments from people who bought it before. So yeah, go on Amazon, type in Intimate Warfare, you'll see it. That great picture that Mike was talking about, but with Ed Mulholland of Gotti and Ward going at it, the Blood Brothers as we call them in the book, and I don't want to say that I'm not going to guarantee you're going to enjoy it, but I'm going to say I think there's a really, really good chance that whoever buys this book's going to like it, and that makes us so happy.
Yeah, me and Jeremiah have both read it. Jeremiah, what do you think of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I already did an on-air review of it, but now I was happy about the book. I mean, it was intimate, as the title describes. I mean, tons of facts in there I had no idea of. I mean, I followed boxing pretty closely back then, but like the piece where Mickey Ward jumps off the truck and impales his butthole, like that. That was one of those.
Oh boy.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like I said in the past, the one thing that really struck me. And I mean, they wrote beautifully about this, about how sharing a ring with somebody, engaging in that sort of warfare is just it's like a transcendent experience that only you and that person can share. That's why oftentimes you see these guys go into battle. It's tooth and nail, it's gritty, it's dirty. Things get rough, and in the end, they drape their arms around each other. They walk, to a single corner. They shake hands. They kiss each other's foreheads, whatever it is, and then they hang out afterwards. And yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful thing to see. And to be honest with you, I think that fight sort of signifies a point that we really haven't seen. I mean, what have we observed in the ring since then that compares? I mean, to be honest with you, a lot of these recent fights, like when you're crowning Joshua and Klitschko Fight of the Year, I don't know if that's indicative of we're just swirling down the toilet bowl or something, because we just really haven't had a fight, near par with that since then, and it's unfortunate. But the book is great. Go ahead and pick it up. And if you can't read well, like Mike, just look at the pictures.
Hey, I need some glasses. And you know what? That was uncalled for. And that means from here on out, I'm going to attack you every chance I get. So
do it.
You want to know how that goes? Okay. All right. All right. But all right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. We will be back tomorrow night. Did you talk to John Einreinhofer, Jeremiah?
No, I didn't send him a message. I figured he wasn't going to do it tonight, so I have to get with him early.
All right, so we will be back tomorrow night inside Boxing Daily at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Keep an eye out. We may do a weekly show with John Einreinhofer a little earlier if he can, so keep an eye out for that. I want to thank John Raspanti for coming on. Intimate Warfare. He didn't make the guarantee. I will. If you're a boxing fan and you read this book and you don't like it, you're not a boxing fan. All right, guys, we are going to wrap it up. Remember, you can hear Survive in Advance tomorrow at noon with myself, Steve Risley, former 1981 national champion. Cole Hanna will be on. We're going to discuss the new Major League Baseball rules changes that may come into effect. Also, basically, just generally the way TV has influenced sports and the rules of sports to speed games up because everybody is so into getting the commercial breaks in or speeding the game up. So make sure you check us out then. Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern, me and Steve and Colin Hartman, who also played for IU, he played actually last year for IU, will be on with our Indiana-Ohio State preview and a wrap-up from tonight's Iowa game. But I want to thank everybody for listening. Make sure you go to thegruelingtruth.net. Jeremiah, you want to tell everybody where they can find us?
You can find us just about anywhere, okay? So Spreaker, iTunes, TuneIn, all these places. Wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, we're there, okay? And, we're also, these get uploaded to YouTube as well. So go there, give us a thumbs up, rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave a review. And more importantly, like I said in the last show, leave some feedback for us, okay? I'm willing to integrate segments, Q&As or whatever improves the show, whatever, improves your listening experience. Just get at us.
All right, guys. So you can catch us tomorrow night on Inside Boxing Daily. Make sure you check us out tomorrow night. Thanks, everybody, for listening. So for John Raspanti, Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.